Hey everybody, and welcome to Skagit County Track and Field Podcast, episode 13. You are now officially into the Throwers Roundtable. So welcome. Before we get started and talking all things throws, we want to welcome one special guest to the show. That is our county legend for the Throwers Roundtable, Mr. Doug Nelson. Nelly, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Nelly, can you give us the quick and dirty, your 2-minute drill on your background as a thrower when you were a competitor, and then actually let's go everything that you did, and then into your coaching career. I'm going to put you on the clock. 2 minutes.
All right. Started off back in the mid 70s with the Arco Jesse Owens games.
Yes.
And as a seventh grader, high jumped. That was my primary. I high jumped about 5'6" in seventh and eighth grade. And from there, just fell in love with the sport. Rocky Sauter down at the middle school brought me to all these Arco Jesse Owens games, met the guy. He was smoking a cigarette, signing autographs. It was wild. That was up at Bellingham Civic Field. And then got into high school as a baseball player, but fell in love with track and field in junior high, and just kind of did everything: sprints, jumps. They didn't have the javelin, obviously, in middle school. And freshmen, they had freshman track and field through the javelin, and competed at the county track meet. And I was a winner in the long jump, triple jump, and javelin my senior year, and was third in the state through 189.4 in high school. Long jump 21.3, triple jump 41.6, and kind of placed in all three of those at state, and went on to college and played college football. Did a little bit of track up at Western with Ralph Vernacchia, but I was mainly a football guy. Did a couple decathlons up there with him, and just kind of intramural type stuff. And came to Mount Vernon, started coaching track in 1985 at LaVenture for a year. And then our legendary coach retired, and I went up to the high school in 86, I believe, and been coaching ever since.
Awesome. And would you say of the three throws, the jab is probably your mainstay?
Absolutely. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I coached the discus shot and javelin for a few years. But jav has always been my passion, and for sure. And then the jumps. I love coaching the jumps as well. But in track and field in high school, I coached every sport except the distance. I've done all of them. So even a little pole vault.
Cool. Okay, so we're gonna open up the round table. There's a lot of folks on here, and you guys just chime in whenever you think. I'm just gonna set up kind of how we break our throws up, just in terms of coaching and staff. So we're lucky enough to have two throws coaches. Coach Ongst does our shot and disc, and then Coach Larson does pole vault and jab. So our throws are kind of split in two. Kevin, do you want to talk about how Burlington, you guys kind of format your throws? Kevin,
sorry, my mute didn't
there you go.
work.
That's right.
Yeah, we've been a little bit in transition. We had Wendy Lovejoy, who coached all three throws for us for probably 15 years, and she got another job over in Eastern Washington. So we brought in a new throws coach last year. So we're a little bit in transition in the fact that we don't she teaches at the elementary school, and then we had another coach also that teaches at an elementary school, so we're having a little bit of issue with the timing of it. So one of the things that we started doing was having our throwers kind of condition at the beginning of practice while they're waiting to get the actual event specific coaching. So, because they'll usually get there around 3:30 or 3:45. So during that first 40 minutes or so, or 45 minutes of practice, and we're probably going to be we started transitioning more to a weight room set up for them. And so we did that last year kind of, and we'll probably do a lot more this year. Well, they'll go into the weight room at the beginning of practice and they'll come out um, and go to their event specific things. And our throws coaches have basically, because we've only had one most years since I've been doing it, we basically kind of the coaches will have workouts for the kids that are in, like, maybe they only throw shot put or they only throw discus or only javelin, and they will kind of pick a day where they are specifically going to be with the kids more that time, and the other kids will have some other things to do. We rely a lot of times on the older kids, the experienced kids, to kind of help out the younger ones as well. It works out pretty well once we kind of get into the season. It's a little bit um, tough at the beginning for one person to hit all the difference. And a lot of times I might even go over and kind of help with the basics, where like she might be showing them javelin and I can show, maybe another group of kids the shot put basics. But that's kind of how we've done it.
Yeah, and I'm just going around screen here. Wise, Pete at LaConnor, what do the throws look like in terms of just staff and stuff like that for you guys?
Yeah, I've been kind of the main throws coach. I've specialized in jab. I've had a bunch of different people over the years help out, depending on who that's been. Like I've tried to build a couple different coaches over the years to kind of take shot and disc. As a head coach, I'm kind of trying to oversee a whole bunch of stuff, as you guys know. Trying to make my way around to various event groups throughout practice. So for me, the last couple years, I've had Coach Landworth, who's was learning track, and he's been doing shot and disc as a volunteer. Been pretty consistent volunteer wise. Mason Murdoch, who had helped with discus a little bit, again, another volunteer guy. And then Coach Lawson, who was on the podcast. He's kind of my Swiss Army knife with his decathlon background, and he's really good with jab, but knows the other ones too. So as far as setting up training, I'm usually setting that schedule, and for those less experienced coaches, for everybody, I'm trying to give an outline of, hey, this is the day we're going to focus on this, because we're trying to split between, if it's more of like a shot heavy day, just dividing it out. If we're going to go shot then disc, or disc then shot, usually that first thing will be where we're going to put the focus on. And then if we're going to have a jab heavy day, those shot disc guys, that we only have a handful that are not going to be, if they're going to be throwing all three, a lot of kids will, for us. At least they'll practice, even if they're not going to like be super into it. So I pulling in some of those assistants on, especially on the whatever the non-focus day is, I'll send them there, and then I'll try to focus in with the emphasis of the day, kind of like what Kevin was saying. You're going to choose one a day, and that'll be the main focus. So
awesome. Yeah. Brad and Ruck, what do things look like at Anacortes for you guys?
Well, I think, as I probably mentioned on when I was on the podcast, I kind of let my event coaches have a lot of autonomy. So Ruck has complete control over the throwers.
Is that true, Ruck?
I mean, yeah, but it's not like I get them whenever I want them.
It's the moon to me, though, right, Ruck? I mean, the only thing I know about the throws, I mean, I wander over there every so often and I hear power position. So I know that much. But I'll tell you what, the throws are a very important part of our program. When I first took over for the second time in Anacortes, the first decision I made was to meet with my throws coach the day after I took the job. So I scheduled a time with the Ruck. We met. We took some little bit of inventory down in our storage area, and I asked him what he needed, trying to build a rapport. So I think it's really important to trust your assistant coaches, and you hire good people. And Ruck has been a really good throws coach. He builds great rapport with our kids. And obviously, if you heard his podcast, he has a great understanding of the technical aspects of the throws. And it's not a world that I'm able to get into.
Yeah. Then,
Ruck?
yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Ruck.
Yeah, I don't know that I can add on too much more as far as how we do it, but it sounds similar as far as trying to focus on one of the throws each day. Especially technically, like we'll probably throw a couple different throws, like we might do shot and disc in the same day, but I'm trying to keep their intellectual workload focused on one of them. So we can get reps in the other, or we might be doing drills in one and then doing some heavier stuff in the other, but I don't like to do a lot of teaching in multiple throws in one day. So yeah, it's like the other coaches were saying, from what I understood, one in one day. As far as, I mean, my background, I never touched a javelin in my life before I took over throwing or coaching the throws. So for me, javelin is an interesting one to try to fit into the schedule, because you've got we're a small school, so we end up having a lot of people specialize in all three, but I'm trying to get those jumpers and sprinters over to do the javelin with us. So I kind of have to play javelin by ear to work around the schedule of some of those people, because um I gotta find the time with them that I can. Whereas, I'm with the shot and disc the rest of the time. Those are the workers in my operation.
Yeah. Nelly, I'm gonna just kind of set up how we do it, and then I'll let you kind of have the last word on
Perfect.
this. But for us, because we've got one guy that does pole vault and jav, Coach Larson. He is kind of designated to doing pole vault the second half of practice. And so if kids need javelin work, usually they have to come over like right after we do our team warm up, get jab done, and then they have to find, something else to do the second half. Luckily, like Ruck said, we've got kids that throw multiple implements, so they're doing multiple things. So if once they're done with jav, they can go throw a shot afterward or disc, depending on what Coach Onks is doing. So for the shot and disc version of our practice, they have one or the other, and Coach Onks is good and flexible, and he flip-flops both of those, so that way the kids aren't resignated, to our schedule. So he'll either do shot first or disc first. And Coach Onks, maybe you can talk a little bit about that, just in terms of maybe how you decide that, or if it's daily or weekly. And then once they're done with Coach Onks, then they're working in their jav stuff. Go ahead, Drew.
Got it? You guys hear
Got
me?
it. Gotcha.
Okay, there we go. Jeez, youngest guy on here can't figure out Zoom. Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much. I'd say that's kind of the approach we take as well. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason why we'll go disc or shot first. I know it's unique. We haven't had too many rotational shot guys. We kind of experimented a couple times. A couple guys have picked it up, and so if we're emphasizing rotation of the shot, we'll start on disc one day just for them, because they found that it's easier to transition from that and then go into the rotation on the shot. But that's kind of a minority of our guys and girls, for that matter. We don't really have a lot of people that are doing that. So that's been a little bit of a factor on which one we'll choose on a certain day. But other than that, we'll just kind of, if we, start with one or end with one the other day, we'll start with the other. And just kind of pick it up. And like I said, just kind of being flexible with it, since, we don't really have too many athletes that are just doing the shot as their only throw, or just doing the disc as their only throw. So we're flexible, and it doesn't really change too much depending on the day. So.
Gotcha. And then Nelly, just to kind of put a bow on organizational stuff, what's kind of been the best setup that you've been a part of with sharing different throwers in terms of practice plan?
Well, it works the best when I was the head coach and coaching the 3 throws. I would it's been, we've had a lot of changes and stuff in the throws coaches over the last, 35, 40 years, but I liked it when I was the head coach, throws coach, and I would take the shot and discus throwers and we'd go up to the shot and discus area. It was all in one area. And I had about 10 drills set up for discus, or 5 for discus, 5 for shot. And the kids would just be doing drills. They would have a worksheet and I would walk around and hold their hand when they're doing glides. We'd start from the front of the ring, go to the middle of the ring, the back of the ring, just do drills, and spent a lot of time with that. And then every day at 4:45, I'd go down and take the javelin throwers. And then we'd work until we were finished, usually 30 to 45 minutes. But that seemed to work really good. Javelin throwers, a lot of them were sprinters, jumpers, runners, and things like that. That's when Evan was doing the jump stuff, Evan Jordan. But that worked the best. Is I would just hang out up there for all the throwers would warm up together with the team, all the dynamic warm up and do all that stuff. And then usually after about 30, 40 minutes, I would take them up for almost an hour and we just drill, and there's progression throughout. Some kids were at different levels, but just a lot of drills, not a lot of throwing, competition throwing in the ring, just drill, position. Yeah, and then I'd take the javelin throwers and go have fun with them for 45 minutes.
Now, is the reason you'd have the javelin second is because there was some carryover, like a lot of those kids are also sprinting and maybe jumping as well, so you'd let them get that specific work in and then they'd go to jav?
Yep. Yeah. And they knew 4:45 every day. If you wanted to throw the javelin, be a javelin thrower, go meet Nelly. And that's kind of how we do it now. I'm working with the jumpers at 4:45. You want to be a javelin thrower, go see Nelly. And we'd go and that would be almost every day.
Yeah. And while we're on the topic of jav, Ruck, you said something earlier about trying to recruit those sprinters and those jumpers to come throw jav. This goes out to everybody, but what is it about jav that makes the carryover to those other events? Like, why is that workable?
Well, I mean, there's definitely the schedule part of it that a lot of us have talked about as far as getting kids for half of a practice. And if you're coaching shot and disc for the first half, then the second half you can devote to javelin. More and more, I've tried to not split practice that way and just have a day of javelin. So when I'm trying to get those kids out, it's because I'm thinking that they're fast. With shot and disc, we've got a short little area that we're trying to sprint in versus we've got the full run up, and we've got the quick twitch that they're trying to finish into their explosive throw with. That I think, even though I've had some success with some bigger throwers throwing, like sometimes it's too slow moving, and I'm looking for a fast arm and quick movement with the hip, and sometimes I don't think that quite translates, and I feel like those sprinters are maybe a little more coordinated to get into some of those positions that I want them to get into for javelin. I find like almost a challenge where I find some of these jumpers and sprinters who are at the back end of our jumper and sprinter lines that are maybe not the fastest or the best jumper. And especially with how our sub-district is currently set up, like I pretty much try to tell them like, hey, if you come train with me, you're going to make it to sub-districts. Whereas where they're currently at, they're probably not going to, because they're not even top 6 or top 8 on our team in that event they're currently in. So part of it is just because we have a lot of sprinters and jumpers, but also just their athletic capability to get into the positions they need to. They're often a little more flexible because they don't have as much of a history of lifting weights, things like that.
Yeah, you notice that just at the state meet too, where you're seeing the best of the best. There are definitely different body types in the jav compared to some of the other throws, for sure.
Yeah,
Pete,
absolutely.
Pete, anything to add on that for jav stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of relating to Nelly, as he's talking about being a head coach and coaching throws, like, yeah, if I see a kid that is like, yeah, I think you could try this. I mean, when we go through at the beginning of the year, we're putting an implement in every kid's hand pretty much. And if it looks good, they're going to stick with it. And and that kind of goes for anything, but as long as they can have the durability. I mean, I think while we're talking about jav and sharing athletes, we've tried this with a couple kids where they're high jump and triple jump and jav, pole vault. I mean, and Ruck did a good job talking about the mental load of trying to do all these technical things at the same time, along with the toll it takes on your back. Just plant. And so you might space out your jab day. You don't want to throw hard 2 days in a row. 2 days rest between jab days is best, at least. And just because it's super taxing on your back and your elbow. And but the same thing, just like planting, those kids jumping or taking a beating, let alone if they're jumping over that fire pit with Gudgel. So
That's when I retire, not yet.
okay, all right. I wasn't sure if that.
Something for us that's helped to find the javelin throwers is we do a heptathlon, Seahawk heptathlon. Yeah. And so I'll find some javelin throwers and some shot put throwers that I may not have expected. No one wants to coach a left-handed kid, but sometimes I find a left-handed kid in there and I'm like, well, shoot, you're good enough and I'm gonna have to coach you now. So that's kind of nice that we have that set up. Do we do that the second week, Brad?
Yeah, it's the end of the second week.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think those are super valuable.
Be prepared for some changes this year, dog.
Whoa. Breaking news.
I have
all distance all the time, Brad. What?
Everybody's running the mile, running hills.
Yeah, it's gonna be a open distance medley. That's gonna be everyone's gonna run the distance.
Minimum 600 meters.
No.
All right, I have a question I want to pose. Just based on what you guys have talked about, because obviously the size of our schools and even with what Nelly was kind of talking about with like just establishing certain drills that he had his athletes kind of run through. What are like, because obviously we don't have just shot putters, just discus throwers and that kind of thing. What are some of the sort of foundational drills that you see as like the most beneficial for these athletes that are throwing, shot, disc, and even jab? But like, what are the basics in the first 3 weeks of the season that you feel like you want to get through to build a strong foundation?
I'll start with a javelin. I have the kids not throw a whole lot the first week or two, just run with a javelin, skip with a javelin in the back position, in the front position, just moving, holding on to the javelin, just drop it, pick it up, get your grip, and just elementary stuff. Elementary PE teacher for 35 years. And it's just start so basic, because kids have to be able to move with the javelin, with it drawn back, with it here, and stabilize it. That's the hardest thing at the very beginning. And I spent a lot of time with that. We do warm-ups with it for 15, 20 minutes and not even throwing the javelin, just walking, moving, skipping, and that kind of stuff. And if they can't do that after a couple of weeks, it's like, whoo, you're going to have a hard time throwing this thing if you can't control it when you're moving.
Yeah. Since we're talking about jab, they got to be able to, like, one of the things they'll hear me say a lot is butt down, toes up. So you got to be kind of in a little bit of a squat, but be able to be on your toes. And so your butt down, heels up, they got to be able to have a little bit of bounce with it, but not fully extended. That's kind of the style. So, like Doug said, just things that are walking, walk, jog, skip, run, just little progressions, and working on disassociating their hips and shoulders. So if someone's super tight and they're just twisty, but they can't. They're that's going to limit what they're going to be able to do in the jav, and all the throws really. But I mean, if they can work on getting their shoulders, they can turn this way and run that way, they're going to be a pretty decent jav thrower. And if they can turn this way and then have their feet rotate, well, they're a pretty good disc thrower. And so they stay this way and then move that way, then you'll be all right. So in shot, so I think just so much of that core stabilization, we do a lot of like Russian twist type stuff, med ball twists, anything that's going to really emphasize hip shoulder separation. And then, yeah, walk, skip, run with the implement. Walk, jog, skip, run.
We started doing just actually a couple years ago, and last year we really brought our throwers into it. And Coach Wallace does such a great job with the hurdlers and has all these great hurdle drills, and he has this full hurdle warm up that they do, and it's nothing to do with hurdling. It's all about stretching your hips and hip flexors and flexibility. And so we started, we had all of our sprinters do it. And then we really started getting our jumpers to do it, almost exactly with the hurdlers. But then last year we brought the throwers into it as well, and put the hurdles on the lowest level. But then we would also have some, raise up the high level where they have to squat and go underneath it and go underneath the hurdles sideways, and just really working on, getting their hips flexible and getting, because I think it also really helps with injury prevention, like you guys are saying. It is a lot of pounding and some just using some muscles and getting down into some positions that aren't natural. And so the more you can kind of get that, I think really helps.
Yeah, and Tim jumped off, but I was going to talk about the hurdle thing. That was one thing. His progression to slow to fast, but he also started utilizing those hurdles just to sort of emphasize that flexibility and getting those kids to be able to move and be mobile and agile with that, in terms of that and the arm position stuff too. So I think that's such a cool thing to sort of see that tool be used with that. Sorry to jump in there, but I know he had really found some purpose with that this season. So
I think he uses wickets at times too, just to over the mini hurdles.
Yeah, we'll use those. John, can I pivot a little bit? Because I think I got
the world's here. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So for us talking about foundational drills, conference, I don't know, a couple years ago, David Dumble, he was I don't know if he's still there, but or at Oregon State throws coach. He had one of the better presenters that I've been to at one of these coaching clinics, and he had these stick drills. He was at ASU before, but just kind of snatch press almost stuff, but just really, really clear progression of squat, stand, squat and press. And so you're getting triple extension, but just straight up, working on getting extension and being explosive and finishing high. And then, add a quarter turn to it and then go 180, and just being able to hold a position, move your lower body, and then extend knee, ankle, knee, and hip, and then arms at the same time. Mm-hmm. If a kid can't stay on balance for shot and disc in particular and hold a line or, chase their movement forward, that's helped so many things. That's like one of those foundational, okay, do you have enough balance to be able to, just with a stick in your hand, do that and do the foundational movements? And that's been a good diagnostic as well, kind of going back to, are you able to do it with little to no weight and little to no speed? Just hold the most basic positions. Because so
now,
often,
Pete, would you say those sticks are probably like one of the biggest things you use in terms of sort of the basics of the drills?
Yep. And I use them for all three, just because it's that extension, finishing high. And I was able to he Dropboxed me his presentation, which had his athletes, including like Jake Whiting, some guys some real studs that were doing that he was coaching that were doing it. And yeah, just the most simple things, like the most simple. And I love getting complex and gimmicky, but yeah, just a stick. And I've used, talking about Nelly, PE teacher, floor hockey sticks, you grab those from the PE department. We've upgraded to some PVC pipes, but old busted javelins and pole vault poles as we get creative. I mean, just like, okay, turn and lift. So
Yeah.
real simple.
Drew, for you guys, maybe let's turn into shot and disc. What's maybe your favorite shot or disc drill? You get to pick, and then give us a full rundown of it, and then Ruck, we'll go to you, and maybe we can kind of get into shot and disc stuff since Pete segued. I like that.
Yeah, I really like the exactly what Pete was just talking about there. Using really breaking down the triple extension. I think that's a really undervalued thing. And so this past year, I think one of the easiest way to implement it was we did this thing called Thrower Thursday. Oftentimes we're competing on Wednesdays. And so Thursday, we're not touching an implement. We're just slowing down, using the med balls, and really just focusing on that hip mobility piece, injury prevention, and really focusing on, that triple extension, utilizing our hips. And so really similar, I think I found it, on Twitter or somewhere, just following through some throws coaches, focusing on breaking down just squat, press, extend, and then adding in the quarter turn, adding in the half turn, and then, doing it with a full throw, and just using a med ball. I think that's one of my favorite drills, mainly just because it goes back to everyone, right? Everyone needs to focus on those basics and those fundamentals. And so that's easily one of my favorites. And I think that it's a really good application. So, and it just kind of gives you like the basics and kind of breaks things down and kind of allows the athletes too that have never done it before, just to have that comfortability before they even get into the ring. So, yeah, I would say that for sure.
Cool, Ruck. What about you? What's a go-to for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that we're all talking about, for throwing, using our hips, getting our hips ahead and being explosive with our hips is all part of that triple extension. So kind of similar. We've always taken these weights that we have that are just those like concrete plastic weights that you used to get when you were a kid, and we got a bunch of those instead of using med balls, just because med balls are expensive and they break easy. And so we get out in the field and 2-3 times a week we're trying to be explosive with those, and we're doing them in different positions, hammer type throws, discus throws, two-hand squat jump kind of with those, trying to help them be explosive, so that not only are they becoming more explosive, but hopefully, since we're not just focused in, say, the shot position or the discus position, that sort of power position where we're just continuing to grind on that right hip as it drives through. Hopefully, if we're using both hips, that can help with like their injury prevention, health, those kind of things. Other things too that are kind of important, foundational for me, is like working on a lot of release stuff from the very beginning, whether it's shot, disc, or jab. Like, if we're doing jab, then we're trying to make sure we're throwing it through the point and getting a good angle release. Otherwise, you're just losing so much distance. Same with, so we're taking a lot of easy throws doing that. And then discus, like doing really basic, like bowling, like where we bowl it back and forth to each other. That's just a part of our routine that we do, because there's so many times where I will get kids who can move through the ring pretty well, and they flub it off their fingers. And so continuing to work on those grips that we have, whether it's a jab grip, and them experimenting with different jab grips, or if it's in discus, trying to play with their fingers to get the right feel so it's coming off their last finger, or even in shot, trying to make sure that they have the shot in the right place so it's not just falling out the back of their hand. So many of those little things that I think we all teach on day one, but if we forget about those and don't come back to them, even though the kids are rolling their eyes like as if they know how to do it, we still are going to see them not doing it when it matters. And you're kind of, you'd be shaking your head like, well, where is this coming from? But, I those little things are those release points just lose so much feet.
Yeah, Ruck, that reminds me of going to shot. We invested in some indoor shots that we have a little brick area where the dumpsters are at our near the discus ring there, and so we'll throw up against that cement wall, and you can just bang for buck. You can just get so many little flicks just working that release on the shot with an indoor shot on a brick wall. As long as no one's on the other side of it, because they don't like that. But yeah, just little. Yeah, I agree with you on that, because you can get so much power, and it's like it's kind of entertaining. It's painful to watch when it's your kid, but when you see somebody get up there and they're just a dude, and then they just lose it all at the end, and it's like, or just goes sideways.
Yeah.
And
Wobbles.
yeah, wobbling, flying like this, whatever it looks like, that is terrible. But yeah, to connect the last step of there.
I would say that connected to what you're saying, one of the biggest changes for me in philosophy is that when I was first starting out as a throw coach, probably because I didn't know what I was doing more so than I don't know right now. I felt like I needed to watch like all of their throws, and I had to be almost like every single time giving them feedback and making sure that like very controlling. And the biggest change for me is like what you're talking about as far as getting lots of reps in. And so instead of just only having one kid in the circle, now like I just try to make use of all the space I have. Like we've got a big space that's all the shot and disc together, but there's only 2 rings, one for shot, one for disc. We're not home. We don't have 10, 20 rings or whatever, right? So we find concrete and we throw, and there's not a net, but they're spaced out, safe. We haven't had anyone hit each other, and if we don't do that, we're just not getting enough reps in. Like, I don't know what you guys kind of transitioning, but like how you guys feel about volume, but definitely feel like as I've started to think about how we get more reps in, then also thinking about how we get more volume and how we can intersperse like drills within that, and how that's counting as volume too, as far as number of throws we're trying to get per day, per week. And then when we get to competitions, trying to, of course, taper that off. But do you guys think about volume as far as like a daily basis, weekly basis, as far as shot, disc, or jav?
For myself, I watch it on Jav, but I'm a I'm a one more sucker,
Yeah.
Coach. It's so hard to actually cap it, especially when things are going good or when things are going bad. I think it's easier when they're going good to be like, all right, that's good, shut it down. But you don't want to, it's kind of like end on a make when you're playing basketball. And yeah, but shot disc, I think I say keep on throwing, honestly, until you need to taper. As long as the kid's holding up physically. I to use another basketball comparison, I just think about how many reps a kid, the most C team basketball players getting. How many times are they shooting a basketball over the course of the year? And then our best top end, thrower, how many times are they touching the implement over the course of the year? And it's like, it's laughable. And I know that's not a great comparison, but even just like this spring, I've told, hey, if I give you this racquetball, could you just throw it and pretend it's a jav or a shot put or a discus for the next 3 months, and just whatever, just a way to get in reps. And because again, that I agree with you, Ruck, that volume piece is so important, just to get comfortable with the movement, like Nellie's saying, because we take 3, I'm coaching my wife's coaching our daughter's 9-year-old girl basketball team, and day one is how to hold the ball, how to all these things that we have to do as track coaches, which is for throw. It's just like teach the sport as we're getting the athletes. And so you really got to go fundamentals. I'm like, oh, if I could just get a little bit of introduction beforehand, some more reps beforehand, that'll make a big difference.
Yeah.
If
Sorry, go ahead.
if I'm a proponent for lots of reps, but over the last, probably since technology really came up and I started using my iPhone, I videotape every kid, every practice. And it has made a huge difference to me and to the kids, I think, on being able to see themselves. And I really put out there, be a student of the sport and YouTube your event, watch videos, watch this. And I will shut it down real quick if, say, a javelin thrower that's throwing, say, a girl's throwing 95 to 100. And then they're at practice, they're throwing 75, 78, 95, then 75, 75, 75. I'll just shut it down and I'll just take them over, show them the video and just listen. We're going to have to come back to this because your elbow is coming way down or this is happening. Your left foot is not getting set. And then shut it down. I like the reps, but if they're make a mistake after mistake and they're not getting any pop, I'll shut it down real quick. But video to me with my jumpers and throwers has been really, really important part of the practice and for the kids to see, what should look like. And, I've got video of, some top, college athletes, some top YouTube guys. And if they're not doing it at practice, well, I'll shut it down real quick. So that we'll just revisit it again tomorrow. We got to work on this. Go home, watch a few videos and then come back.
Yeah. Drew, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think the volume piece is really entertaining. I love it a lot because 2 years ago, we had a couple of athletes and they couldn't get enough of it. And they were just out there throwing, half hour, 45 minutes after practice. And initially I was like, hey, this is great. And then we get to competition and they're just not competing well. And so we revisited and we just talked about it a little bit of practice and we just took kind of a different approach. And it was actually leading up to county and said, okay, you guys get 6 competition throws today during practice. And that's it. Because they were overthinking it, right? And so I think it can depend on the athlete as well and the timing of the season, right? Obviously, in the first 2 weeks, those reps are invaluable, right? You have to throw, right? And so to the timing of the season is really important. We've also had athletes that just threw their arm out, and I think the mental side of it is so undervalued when it comes to throws. Coaching wrestling, I think it helps with some of our athletes, some of our throwers. After wrestling season, we're like, man, I just have a better approach going into a match. And so just having that mental side of, really, what am I focusing on practice, right? Am I doing the right things? And are these quality throws versus quantity? And so just finding that balance with specific athletes, especially with some of the more experienced people. What are we doing? We want that quality reps over the quantity. And so that's been a really fun balance to kind of find. So the last couple of years. So it's been interesting to say the least.
Well, and that's maybe the last avenue that I kind of want to visit with you guys. And I kind of want to hear from the head coaches first and then go more in depth with you throw guys, but the mental aspect of throwing, and then maybe we can wrap this up. Ruck, I thought you did a good job in your podcast talking about that. It's something that as a jumps coach, I think that's huge. Not only at meets, but also how to prepare for meets at practice with the mental side of things. So going into that, I guess this goes to Brad and Kevin, since neither of you technically coach the throws. What's something like, maybe think back to your best throwers, or just maybe generalizing throwers. What are some good attributes mentality wise that a thrower has or has had in your programs? Brad, maybe you can go first.
Wow, put me on the spot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are throwers really any different than any other athlete? I mean, I think for a thrower, just like maybe a high jumper or a horizontal jumper, you're out there in the ring by yourself. So I think poise is probably really important. And I think as an athlete, you don't need to let things get away from you. You need to be in the moment. So I think those are probably two really important things.
I would say for us, one of the things that Ruck talked about on his when he was on the podcast that I totally agreed with was he was talking about how throwers can be any athlete. We've had some of our best athletes be throwers, shot putters, discus throwers. I had a girl that went to state and placed, might have been when Pete was there, and she was
Emily?
second in state, and yeah, she's second in state
Yeah.
in high jump and fifth in state in shot put.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
you can be a versatile, really athletic person and be a really good thrower. You don't have to be, the strongest, person on the team to do it. We've had everyone from, 5'2" girls to 5'10" girls that have been successful in all three throws. But I would say one thing mentally that always kind of gets me, and I think it's really important to really talk to the throwers, especially when it comes down to the end of the season and the big meets. A lot of times we're so used to our regular season meets, and it's open pit, open, they go out there, and everybody's, hanging out, and you're with your friends, and oh, it's your turn, and you kind of jump in there, and you maybe it comes off your hand wrong in the shot, and everybody laughs, and and whatever, and you're just kind of doing it, and you go through the motions, and they kind of there are kids that I've found that don't get rid of that as the pressure comes on, and they don't understand that the best throwers, they get into a zone, and they're in the moment, like you just said, Brad, and just like they are ready to compete, and you've got to get yourself fired up a little bit to do that. And we've had some kids absolutely respond like that, but we've also had some kids that don't, and they kind of, it's like, okay, to get to state, or to get to the finals, you have to do it. You have to hit this one. This is your last throw. And they're kind of goofing around, talking to their friends still, and they get in the ring, and that just doesn't happen. Because of the way that it's structured and where everybody is, sometimes that I think is the hardest thing to teach, is that, it changes as the meets progress. Now you're in flights, and now, there is a little bit of a pressure to it, and it can't be just kind of just, hanging out and just jump in and throw.
Yeah, you got to take your
Like,
sweats off at some point.
Well,
Yeah.
and think about all the meets that we've been to where they are expecting I'm going to get the same amount of practice throws that I want in practice to be ready for my competition throws. And then you get a different official and they say, you already had two, you're done. You already had your two practice throws.
Yeah,
You
that was
wait until
state
your
last
turn.
year.
And so, like Drew was talking about before, I definitely do competition days where it's like, hey, we get our four throws. Do what you need to do to be ready. You don't get to take 20 practice throws to be ready for your four. Like, let's limit it, because in most of my practices we're playing music pretty loudly and having a good time. And then we got to have that practice where it's competition. You should be going into the ring where you've already visualized your throw. Like, I big on visualization. And then when you're in there, you can't be thinking about a bunch of things. If you're thinking about something, it's one thing. The one thing, you need to do, really make sure that you do, that's part of your specific throw, that maybe is a weakness or a strength that helps you do well. And so it's all that mindset of like, it's a rehearsal. We have, for a season, say we have 10 competitions, and if you're a shot putter, then what? That's 40 times where you're gonna try to do your best, probably. Maybe a little bit more than that with finals. So in practice, it's got to be like hey, this is us practicing for the few moments that we get in a game.
Yeah,
It's
guys,
funny you guys talk about that, because at practice, and I implemented this many years ago, is for my jumpers, when they, even if they're just doing run throughs, the very first practice I talk to about when you get between the white lines, that's your time. This is what it should look like. And you prep yourself. This is going to be your routine, like a putter, like a base. You go through a routine, you go in, you jump up 3 times, you start. It's the same thing every time. Same thing with my javelin throwers. We're out on the grass, but when you get up on the competition runway to do a practice throw, you are practicing like it's a track meet. You get in there, you got your steps down, you got your mark down, you stand there, you take your breaths, you do your thing that you're going to do every time you compete. And I did that in the shot put. We had all these drills, but once you got into that competition ring, you do the same thing every time that you're going to do. And it can be special to you. It doesn't have to be what I'm showing you or what another person does. Find something that works for you to get you ready to just do a run through, or just, practice what you're going to do in a meet. And that's been really helpful.
I got a couple pain points that I'd love to get your wisdom on.
Did you say pain?
Pain, like these are painful to me as a coach.
Yeah.
That experience.
I bet they're going to be the same for me. I know it.
Okay, so Nelly's talking about jab, so I'll start there. We work on steps, we measure. They know how many steps and what the measurements should be. I've gone to so many meets and be like, did you bring a tape? Did you actually get your steps? Like, I just guessed when I was in there. And that kind of goes to like general, like you work these routines, day before meet prep. You work the routines. This is how you get your steps. This is how you enter the ring. This is what is anybody crushing that they would share some wisdom?
No, at sub districts last time, my best javelin thrower gets in there, and ahead of time I said, hey, just so you know, even though at all these meets that we go to, they don't care if you run backwards before your throw. They're not going to let you do that. You need to make sure you've measured. You can lay down the javelins ahead of time, get the right number that you need for the number of steps you're taking. And she immediately goes up there, starts to run backwards, and Jeff, the throws coach from Cedar Crest, is like, you can't do that, and just freaked her out. Now, she ended up throwing great, but it was like pain point.
Yep. Yeah. So if we guys figure that out, let me know. Episode 2, Throwers Roundtable. Okay.
There's always one. There's always going to be 1 or 2 kids out of the 10, 15. It's a percentage. And that's the kid that will drive you nuts. That won't.
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
Scratches. When you see, sector fouls, foot fouls, do you guys have talking about Nelly, I use video as well, a lot. But there's that balance to not overwhelm them, to not give them to give them too much. And I've had some good coaches who sat back and like, oh, you got this. And then I've had some people who are like, no, this is exactly what you did wrong. And I've had both approaches work for me, and both approaches blow me up.
Every kid's different. I try to, on a track meet, it's usually I'm all over the place. So I just say, throw far, do your best. There's nothing we can do now. Practice the hay's in the barn, do your best. And then revisit it after the track meet, what went good, what didn't go good. But during the track meets, I don't do a lot of coaching, especially technique stuff. It's just do your best.
Yeah, I think you got to weigh that one by the athlete. I had one athlete last year where if you said anything to her, remotely, you just couldn't, right? It was gonna get in her head, and it was gonna throw to it. So super positive, right? Here we go, next one, right? And then another athlete who wanted me to coach, like he needed some feedback, otherwise he felt like there was something, right? So I think it just depends, and even just have that conversation with them, right? Just say, hey, what do you want from me? Do you want me to kind of just give you small things, or what are you looking for me? And just having that conversation, I think that can help too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying as far as you kind of got to have a plan for each of them, and hopefully you're able to have that plan worked out with them ahead of time. One of my throwers from last year, even if it was just practiced, if I tried to tell her too much, she might shut down, she might start crying. And so I had to just be open, like, I'm gonna kind of let you do your thing, and you need to talk to me when you're needing some advice. But I mean, it also happens where I feel like um, kids almost will become too dependent on me at practice, where they're waiting
Yeah.
at practice, like, hey, will you come look at this? And it's like, yes, I will eventually come look at one of your throws. I'm doing something else. Like, you don't need me to watch every one of your throws. Or I see one of theirs and they stop in the middle of the ring. They're like, so what did I do wrong? It's like, I number one, I would love it if you could just feel what you're throwing. And so that kind of gets also back to a mindset we were talking about earlier, where definitely I think that throwers, as they become obviously more comfortable and used to positions, when they become successful, they're thinking about something in the ring. They have a plan. And then after they throw, they tend to have an idea of what went on. And so I'm trying to get all my throwers to the point where we can have a conversation afterwards of what did you feel, what happened, so we can kind of work from there. And I'm hopefully not at a meet trying to coach much. I'm taking video, and then we can talk about that at practice. And for the most part, if I'm saying something, it should be something that they've heard a bunch from me before, because it's probably a reminder. And we'll even have that reminder planned out where it's like, hey, I know that you're opening with your left side too soon in discus. And when I've used these words with you before, that helps you to stay back on the throw. So if I see that at the competition, I'm going to tell you these words. So, um, you know, that also helps them, I think, mentally feel a little bit more calm and comfortable when they hear something that they might be expecting and go, yeah, okay, I can do this.
Gotcha.
I
Since you,
Pete, before you get to your next one, this goes off yours. I have an etiquette question for you throws coaches.
yeah,
If I'm standing around the throws ring and there's a foul of some sort, are you guys hollering
cheering.
out? I mean, I know that probably depends on on the meet. I know it probably depends on if it's a Burlington kid that does it or not, but are you guys screaming out, "Hey, that was a foul"? Are you what does that look like?
Johnny, anything about meet management, it's everywhere. So I've been there where the person didn't know they were running the event, and I'd be like, "Hey, that was out," and they're like, "What? He threw?" Um, and I've been at the state meet, literally, where my girl at shot put, her shoelace hit the top of the toe board and was called a foul, um, which was hard on me. But yeah, I don't know. I usually try to leave it up to the officials to call ins and outs.
How
Yeah, I
about
try
Eric
to-
Holmstrom's over at Cle Elum, Johnny?
He's what?
Eric Holmstrom's throw in the discus at Cle Elum, or where was it?
That was
Eastern Washington.
No, it was at Cascade Leavenworth.
Cascade Leavenworth, 165 feet. They called it a foul when it was so inbounds.
That's right. You remember that one?
Oh boy.
So speaking of throwing something out of bounds, we got Nelly on here. I got to tell a story about Nelly and the county meet. My senior year, Nelly was running the discus, and we were at LeConner, or running jav, and I was throwing, and we had already gone through finals, and there was a decent little crowd down there, by kind of crowded around the runway, and it was over. I'd taken the eighth throw or sixth throw and already won. And Nelly calls me over. He's like, "All right, Pete, you got this, but let's just mess with the crowd a little bit." And so he scooted everybody between the crowd, the grandstands, and the scratch line. And he's like, "Run past there and huck that thing. Put it out past the flags." And so I basically started my run up at the toe board, ran out to the 20 yards into the field, threw it, and it lands just past the flagging. Would have been a 210-foot throw probably. And then I ran back and then jumped up and down at the toe board, and I can hear my mom in the stands. Yeah, she thought she was, but it was fantastic, and that was Doug Nelson, trying to have the best time he possibly can at a track meet.
Well, you're lucky
That's
someone's
fun.
uncle wasn't behind the flags at the end of the sector. Jeez.
I made sure it was
Been
clear.
impaled.
It was all right.
Well,
That
I
was
think
a fun track meet, Peter. That was a fun track meet.
Absolutely. And I got to give Nelly a shout out one more, because he gave me some tips when I was in high school, and that really helped. We were in need of some jav advice at that point in time. And so Nelly was clutch there. Even it was hard for me here in coaching from a bulldog, but I appreciate you, Nelly.
I was very fortunate to have a lot of fun coaching in the county track meets. When Erickson was, at Burlington, and Whiten was at Burlington, and I went over and helped coach some of those Burlington boys would come to Mount Vernon, and I'd coach them a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. I spread my love around the county a lot when I was coaching at Mount Vernon. It was fun.
I think that's a good spot to wind this down. So this will be the last kind of question presented. Jake, I'll let you take it from here, but we'll go Nelly, you get first answer, and then we'll go around in order on my screen. We'll include head coaches, but we'll keep answers short. But Jake, go ahead with the question, and then we'll finish up.
Yeah, just what is the best advice that you would give to a new throws coach? What's that one thing? And we've heard a ton of great wisdom, but what's that one thing that you kind of go, hey, this is what I would love to pass on to my past self or the next person that's taking over for me? What's that piece of advice?
My piece of advice would be coach every kid like they're a state champion. Give your time and energy to everybody, and enjoy some of the worst throwers as you would the best throwers, and just build a relationship with them.
Good. Ruck, you're up, and then Brad, you're on deck.
I would say try to make practice fun and competitive every day. Throwing is hard enough, and it's hard enough to do the same thing constantly and sometimes not see improvement. And so I think we need to be desperately seeking ways to have fun through whatever means it be, music or different themes for different days or little competitions, whatever you can do to make it fun.
Awesome. Brad, you're up. Gudgel, you're on deck.
All right. I guess I would just say the throws always seem to be off in their own space away from everybody else, just to make sure that throwers know that they are part of the team and that they are loved, and that also patience, I guess, make sure every thrower knows that they're starting off at one place and they may not be at the same place as another thrower, and the progression is the key.
Good. Kevin, go ahead. Then Pete, you're on deck.
Yeah, I think our throwers just they have a great kind of kinship. Our throwers have always been really, really close, and they've had barbecues. The throwers barbecue is a big tradition we used to have, and have made T-shirts, and they kind of embrace the throwers cult, I guess, a little bit in a good way. And we same thing what Brad just said. Yeah, we want to embrace those kids, and there's a lot of kids that are brand new to track and field, and that might be, they might not be fast, or they can't really find an event. And sometimes, finding one of those throws is the event for them, and celebrate, like what Nelly said, celebrate every single one and really focus on improvement. If you threw it 13 feet in the shot put and you threw it 14 feet the next week, then you've improved, and that's a big celebration.
Awesome. Okay, Pete, you're up. Then Drew, you can take us out.
Yeah, I just say learn to love it, and let yourself geek out on it. I mean, we're a bunch of track geeks here, and just let kind of get in there, like we've all been saying. Get on YouTube, find the people that know what they're talking about, and pour into those kids. And it's okay to, just let yourself identify as a thrower. You know, some people might disparage that. I think it's a badge of honor.
Nice. All right, Drew, take us out.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, just being recent, is just be a continuous learner, just be a student of the game, and just like for me, just asking questions, right? Just being around, just looking at other people, how are other coaches operating, how are other throwers operating, how are things going, just learning, right? And just continuously learn to love it, like Pete was saying. I think that's perfect, just got to be a continuous learner, and I think in everything we do, but especially when it's being a coach, man. If you think you got it down, you don't. There's always something to learn and grow on, and I think that's got to be everyone's mindset.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys for taking the time to join in on this. I I learned a ton, and that my initial level was about a 2.5. I kid all the time with Pete. The only thing I tell throwers is go from low to high, and that's about all I know. So I learned a lot. Nelly, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And then for everybody else, next week we're doing a jumps roundtable. So I'd love to have any of you and all of you back if something you're interested in. So appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
John.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good to see y'all.